Oh, hey, didn't hear you there. Sometimes sound can be so engrossing you just get lost in it. Whether it's the real life sounds of the big city or the designed soundscapes of a game like Grand Theft Auto, sound can say a lot about the world around you. Game creators have to ensure that they get the sound of the world just right, or else you can get pulled right out of it. Oh! Hey, I was stealing that car.
Sound is one of the most important design elements for bringing a game world to life. Just imagine if you replaced the complexity of GTA 5 city sounds with, say, the sounds of Saints Row. It isn't even close. Sound design is secretly a very big factor in immersion. We've talked about immersion a bit before, but basically it's the illusion that the world of the game is an actual place that you're moving through. It's almost as important as the hugeness of the environment itself, the realistic depictions of LA smog, and Venice Beach surf. But how does GTA 5 immerse us with sound? Is it through unparalleled attention to detail, an understanding of how sound affects game feel, sheer complexity, or is it something else entirely? Well, it starts with a simple rule of the audio team, that everything you hear should correspond to something that can be potentially found in the game. So if you hear a horn honking in the distance, you know it's a frustrated driver somewhere over there. If seagulls are flying through the air, you hear them squawk. Of course, we expect this intuitively. This is how life works. Everything has a sound. And like a Foley artist who ensures that we hear correct sound during a film, the Rage Audio sound engine creates assets for everything you see in the game, even little kitty cats. Because if not, it's kind of weird. But this has not always been the case. The first GTA was basically a wall of bad hip-hop and Hot Wheels sound effects. By Vice City, you could hear the city functioning, but only what was in your immediate surrounding. Lifelike audio in GTA 4's Liberty City was close to being realized, but it wasn't quite perfect. For instance, the sound of barking dogs could be heard in the background noise, but sadly, there were no dogs to be found. And that's a point that breaks immersion. If you're constantly hearing dogs in the background, you should be able to see them, right? According to Nuclear Throne's sound designer Jonas Turner, sound should emphasize what the player is focused on. And in GTA, this is stealing cars. For any given make and model of a car, the engine can accelerate, decelerate, coast, and idle. You can actually hear it intake air, and it also goes tink, tink, tink as it cools off, just like in real life. You hear the transmission shift, the suspension squeak, and the chassis bang. Get this wrong, and the car geeks who love your game are going to have a fit. Also, you're going to be shooting guns, obviously. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that each kind of gun has its own unique audio. If not, the firing would just become repetitive and break the immersion. And thirdly, you're going to be interacting with the city itself, running over people as you get to know the neighborhoods. So there's city noise, layers upon layers of car sounds that creates this soft hum in the background. A city also has people, of course, and the citizens of Los Santos are full of insults and compliments about your car, even if no one would react like that if you bumped into them in real life. There are so many other subtleties to a city sound that need to be accounted for. If you go on a walk in your city, you can hear the buzz of pipes under the street, the murmur of people in a cafe issuing from an open door, the chirps of birds in the trees. And this creates immersion because this is how sound works in your real life. You're always surrounded by sound. Pause for a moment and you'll hear it whether you live on a quiet street or a big city or are watching this from a dorm room. Every place has its own particular layers of sound. For instance, in GTA, cars on the freeway are treated as a singular roaring entity, giving off a solitary hum depending on the amount of traffic, which is controlled by the game's AI. But if you pause for a second in the right places in Los Santos, it's actually beautiful and relaxing. Of course, with all the crazy stuff that goes on in GTA, this could easily become chaos. How are all these complex layers of sound kept in harmony? Well, it's all orchestrated around the player. You see, the sound design team has divided Los Santos into 949 overlapping sound zones. So when you enter a specific part of town, it triggers the ambient mix they intended for that area, all of which smoothly transitions from one to another so it feels perfectly natural. And to give you a point of comparison, Liberty City only had 86 sound zones. For instance, rural Vinewood Hills sounds like this. Inner City Rancho like this. And Oceanside Vespucci Beach is like this. or just walk under a bridge on the interstate and hear the difference it makes. Because the sounds have rules attached to them, the environments respond not only to your location on the map, but to what you're doing there. These are the rules that determine occlusion, reflection, reverberation, and distance effects. These are also the things you don't really notice in real life, unless you're in a monastery with chanting monks, but it gives the game a subtle layer of immersion because your brain realizes that, hey, this sounds right. For instance, where you shoot determines the rules of gunfire. If you open fire among the high buildings downtown, the sound of the bullet will be reflected. If you fire your gun in open country, it doesn't echo, but the ambient drone of insects will come to a hush. If you shoot near a metal shipping container, you hear a metallic resonance. All this attention to detail that you may never even notice helps give Los Santos its wonderful, elusive quality of immersion. Of course, GTA isn't the only game where sound is used to create an immersive world that you can feel at home in. The sounds of the forest in Skyrim and the rustle of brush in Red Dead Redemption are also quite impressive. But GTA's sound design does even more than give you the great feeling of being solidly anchored in a world. According to Fernando Ramallo and David Kanega of the game Panoramical, players become the external world, and as it were, they begin to peel the self-world relationship inside out. So in a weird way, when you play GTA, you're playing Los Santos like a giant interactive synthesizer that responds to your every movement. And this sort of player-centric sound design will only become more important with virtual reality on the horizon. To create immersion in VR, sounds will need to respond with even greater fidelity. VR games will need to look to GTA's player-centric sound design because the audio will need to track your location in the virtual world just like the camera tracks your head movement. It's sound design like this that brings a virtual world to life. That is, until some jerk in VR GTA Online shoots you in the back of the head and you didn't even hear it coming. But what do you think? Has a game's sound design ever moved you? If so, how? Hash it out in the comments, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe. I'll see you next week.
So first and foremost, we want to know more about what you think about this here game show. What kind of gaming videos that you like, that you watch on a regular basis, what topics you'd want discussed. If you could click on the link in the description and take our survey so that we get to know you a little bit better, that would be awesome, so we can continue to create amazing, amazing shows just for you. Anyway, let me get into the Portal comments. D. Jones says that relating Portal to feminism seems like a little bit of a stretch because while the narrative directly deals with the themes such as abuse of technology, feminism is only sort of hinted at, which is something I heard from a lot of you. But, you know, in other words, I'm making way too much out of it, which wouldn't be the first time that I've heard this. You know, it happens. In any case, I think that games deserve to be analyzed just like anything else. I mean, you know, if we can dive deeply into the fan fiction behind a movie like Star Wars and try to find hidden passageways, any more that we dive into sort of the story, any stories that we love, then there's no reason why we can't dig in as deep as humanly possible into games like Portal. Anyway, I agree that Portal, in theory, could present a stronger feminist message if you didn't have to go digging around the backstory, so that, you know, you could know more explicitly that this is a story between Shell and GLaDOS, and that it's actually about a mother-daughter relationship. But regardless, one of the things that that happens in Portal is that women talk to other women about things aside from men, which is known as the Bechdel test, which is totally a feminist thing. You can look it up. I'll link to it in the description. So this puts it head and shoulders above many of its peers in regards to feminism in terms of exploring this relationship. The rest is just icing on the Portal cake. Justin Average Tree says that you could replace all the characters in Portal with a dude and it would be exactly the same. Okay, first and foremost, think about what that you're saying here. So if we replace them all with a dude, could we replace them all with, I don't know, cats? Could we replace them all with sweaters? Could we replace them all with trees, as your name might suggest? And the answer obviously is no, because the interactions between all of these different inanimate objects is totally different. In the same way, if you just replaced all the characters with a dude, then you wouldn't have the mother-daughter relationship that I had outlined in the episode, unless of course you're saying that there is no mother-daughter relationship, in which case I would say go back, please rewatch the episode and let me know what you think more specifically. Second big thing, Valve is a company that, you know, basically they spend so much time and effort putting in every little detail. They want you to think deeply about this. So if you're just suggesting that their characters are utterly utterly replaceable at any point in time, that's kind of a slap in the face to them. So you can't both hold up in the air that Valve, is a paragon of game design, that they make some of the greatest games on the planet, and then also say that their choice of characters doesn't really matter at all. So anyway, one of the most important moments to some feminist critics is the big reveal in the first Portal that you're playing as a woman. And the reasoning goes that most people expect that you were playing as a male character, because that's what you usually do. You usually play as a male protagonist. But when you shot the portal gun and you saw Shell looking back at you and you realized that you were this character, it completely shattered this expectation. So that's why just having a dude there would not necessarily be as surprising, because that's what this game is basically doing. It's shifting your perspective. And so you might be asking, why might I think that I have a male character all the time? And that's because of gender bias in video games. So Portable actually makes a great statement about the medium of games through its own gameplay and through the character, and that's one of the reasons that I think that it's a masterpiece. Of course, you can 100% disagree, but at the very least, you have to agree that Valve takes their craft very, very seriously, and everything is in there ostensibly for a reason. Anyway, I'll see you soon.